T for Travis.
Traveling Travs, Traveling String Camp.
This is Travis.
I'm going to read this quote to you. He's a scientist, an anthropologist from Eastern New Mexico University, and he is just confounded, I believe, by flat earthers and science deniers. He says this: "Scientists have predicted the upcoming eclipse and its exact path years in advance. It occurs to me that this detailed prediction of future events provides an excellent opportunity for climate change deniers, COVID hoaxers, anti-evolutionists, and science deniers of all sorts to demonstrate their claims that science can't be trusted. If the eclipse doesn't happen as predicted, we owe the science deniers a big apology and need to hear them out. But if the scientists are correct, please kindly sit down." Hi everybody, I'm Travelin' Trav, and I'm here in Paris, Texas for the upcoming solar eclipse. The first thing that arrives are the porta potties. Yes, that is a cowboy hat on top of the Parisian Eiffel Tower.
Was God born to wrestle with science in an age wrought with anger and fear? We've been holding our own, hoping that we've outgrown our urge to make promises dear.
Here's another Facebook post, a completely different person. She says, "Random question. Would you date someone who has different religious views than you? I myself have no problem with it as long as they don't push their views on me in the hopes of changing mine. What are your thoughts on this subject?" And here's my response. This question is inviting. I like your inquiries, so here goes. Humans are story creatures. Biologically speaking, we are absolutely incapable of ceasing our incessant storytelling. We have created broad narratives, archetypal stories, and metaphysical constructs which are linked to our stories, oftentimes unconsciously. These stories often seem to tell us more about ourselves than they tell us about God, what we might call the true nature of reality. Most folks that we might call religious have unexamined belief systems. Therefore, they will unconsciously try to push their views on you. This will happen even if it is not intentional on their part. You might encounter the same unconsciousness in someone who calls themselves a scientist. Scientists are storytellers too. Everyone is writing a story. Everyone tells stories. The scientific method is super cool because it gives room for the story to change. However, we have seen very clearly how the word of science can be used to shame non-compliant citizens into obedience as it serves the state's deception. In this example, we might be able to see how it's not so much about the ignorance of religious folks, but the ignorance of all folks. When we form attachments to any story, then we are hooked. Freeing ourselves from our unconscious stories is the archetypal journey from bondage to freedom. The Buddhists say, "Don't believe it because I say it. Try it out and see how it works." This is why some have called Buddhism the science of the subjective experience. It is a path of non-aggressive observation which, over time, erodes unconscious attachment to our storylines. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that fiction can reveal truth that reality obscures. We are barely able to tell a truthful narrative, especially when it comes to our own lives. Where does that leave us? There are people who are able to celebrate their own faith while not pushing anything on anybody. Richard Rohr and Thomas Keating are two examples of this from the Christian traditions. Religion is a great and terrible place to see how horrible humans can be when we think our story is the story. Oftentimes, people who consider themselves exempt from the follies of religion are people who have adopted secular belief systems with the same judgmental attitude that religious folks so clearly embody. Unconscious scientists and atheists are some of the most close-minded and judgmental people that I've ever met. Today, people often attach themselves to labels like conservative or liberal. We identify with a character and a set of traits that we believe makes us better than everyone else. Self-righteousness manifests in diverse and many forms. I realize that I've painted here with really broad strokes. Would you date someone with different religious views? My answer is yes. Intimacy with other people who tell different stories is how I learned much of what I have stated here. Everything I have stated is learned from my experience. Deepest blessings always.
We've been holding our own, hoping that we've outgrown our urge to make promises.
His Gabe said this is T for Travis.
We will push our roots deep into the soil, and we will stretch our branches out past the fear. We will no longer need a leader to lead, because they only make promises, dear. 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 We will no longer need a leader to lead, because they only make promises, dear. We were held by the mother of the mountain as we made our way back down, with the root underfoot and the river down below, and the clouds making thundering sounds, 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 with the root underfoot and the river down below, and the clouds making thundering sounds. Promises, dear. Promises, dear. Promises, dear. Promises, dear. Promises, dear. Promises, dear. We've been holding our own, hoping that we've outgrown our urge to make promises.
Nenay, veramente que no me interesa que te vaya, no vaya, no.